So let's talk about a silly rules loophole that Games Workshop should probably get fixed. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought we'd just talk about one weird little corner of the 40k rules, which recently came up on a Facebook post on the competitive 40k page. Basically, rules as written at the moment, it seems if you charge most vehicles from deep strike, you technically need an 8-inch charge, not a 9-inch charge. Back near the start of 9th edition, I made a video about this gamey 8-inch charge that you could potentially do from deep strike if the models that you happen to be charging weren't actually on the level and were, say, on a first floor ruin. This comes about because engagement range both has a vertical and a horizontal component, so provided you're within 1 inch of them horizontally, provided you're within 5 inches vertically, they still count as being in combat. However, when models arrive from reserve, they generally have to set up 9 inches away from the enemy model's base, and you don't measure that horizontally, you measure that diagonally. This means if we do a little bit of right-angled triangle maths along with Pythagoras, technically rules as written speaking, this Chaos Terminator would only need an 8-inch charge to become within 1 inch range of the Hellblaster, so his charge from Deep Strike has strangely been made a little bit easier because the Hellblaster happens to be standing on the top of a building. To be honest, this doesn't really make any sense at all from an in-game perspective. It's literally just a quirk of the rules I don't think was at all intentional. Honestly, I was expecting this to get removed from the game in an FAQ, but it seems that Games Workshop have just decided to stick with the rules as they stand, and actually strangely specifically FAQ'd it, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, and they clarify that yes, you can indeed get shorter charges against models that are in first floor ruins. Certainly an odd quirk, but maybe not one that comes up all that often in a game. However, a consequence of this that I had not thought of, and someone posted on the competitive 40k group recently, is that this also works for vehicles. I think the post was specifically trying to find some way to counter Drakari raiders, which are everywhere in the meta at the moment, perhaps by giving people just a little bit more of a charge range on them, so perhaps could be a tiny bit easier to deal with. Purely going by the rules in the book, this does check out. The reason it does is that on the datasheet it says that you measure all distances from the model's hull, which because it's somewhere up in the air, technically will mean that you can start a very little bit closer than 9 inches horizontally from the raider, and therefore get an 8-inch charge. Now, just a caveat, I'm certainly not saying that this is at all intentional. It seems like a rules loophole to me, and at the moment if I was doing the deep strike, I'd be happy to still try and roll the 9-inch charge range, as I believe that that's what the rules are intending to go for. I'm certainly not telling everyone to go out and use this, but I think it's quite interesting to know that it exists. Even weirder still though, it certainly isn't limited to skimmers, it can work just as well with non-skimmers as well. Say if we've got our deep strike jump infantry trying to charge this land raider, simply because there's a tiny overhang on the land raider's treads, that again means that the closest point is very slightly up in the air, meaning that the model will be set up very slightly within 9 inches horizontally, and again allow them an 8-inch charge to get into an engagement range. Pretty well every vehicle has a slight bit of overhang, so for most vehicles it doesn't really matter which part you charge. If you're charging from deep strike, it would usually still be an 8-inch technically. As I said, this certainly isn't going to be something that I'd be jumping to use myself. It doesn't really feel intended, even if it is rules as written. I think if they'd wanted for tanks and vehicles to be easier to charge, they would have spelled it out explicitly in the rules. I'd also say that it isn't the biggest deal either way. Deep strikes in 40k do happen a fair bit, but only a small amount of them are going to be trying to charge vehicles out of deep strike, and even then the chance of getting a higher charge off is a little bit small. You jump from a 28% chance of getting a charge on a 9 to a 42% chance of getting a charge on an 8, which certainly isn't nothing, but it's only actually going to matter at all in 14% of cases where you would have rolled differently. On its own, an 8-inch charge still isn't exactly reliable. If you play with the World Team Championship rules, the ones they're developing for their new events when they come out, I believe they do already have an FAQ that deals with this specifically, though it will be pretty handy for Games Workshop themselves to FAQ it if it's not intentional. Even if I don't think that all that many people will see it as intentional, technically speaking, like it or not, it is the rules right now. So it will be pretty handy for Games Workshop to come down one way or the other, so everyone's playing off the same book, and there's no question of sportsmanship or rules as intended. In any case, I did find this all just quite interesting. I can only imagine that this is why they made us learn Pythagoras' triangle in school. In any case, a big thank you for listening, and feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more game-focused 40k content. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos, I would just like to mention one other way to help support the channel, which is my Element Games affiliate link, which you can find down in the video description. Element Games is a discount retailer based in the UK, and they usually give 10 to 20% off Games Workshop's models. If you were thinking about ordering in any miniatures anytime soon, if you give the link in the description a click, order something through them, and a small amount goes to help support Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever. Can just be a way to help support the channel if you were thinking about buying something anyway. For people in the USA and Canada, there is also an Amazon link as well. Again, if you give that a click and order literally anything off Amazon whatsoever, a small amount goes to help support Auspex Tactics. A massive thank you to you guys who have been using those, it really does help quite a lot. In any case, thanks very much for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.